I'm Megan.
I'm Colin.
And this is
Pet Sitter Confessional,
an open and honest discussion about life as a pet sitter.
Brought to you by Time to Pet and the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters. Do you take pride in your work? What does that mean to you? Our passion for the business that we run and the services that we offer fuels the pride that we take. When we have passion, we have pride because we know that there's something to back up what we say we're going to do. On today's episode, Savanna Westwood, owner of The Savvy Sitter, rejoins the podcast. She was previously on episode 47. She talks about what it means to have pride in her work, a unique service that she offers to her clients, and how to know when you're overcommitted. Let's get started.
Sure. Thank you for having me back, Colin. Hi, everyone. My name is Savanna Westwood, the owner of The Savvy Sitter, Pet Sitting and Dog Walking LLC. We proudly service the Winter Garden, Windermere, and Horizon West areas, along with some of the surrounding areas. We provide pet sitting, dog walking, overnight stays, and a plethora of other services for our clientele. And we just turned 7 years old as of June of 2022. 2014, the last quarter, was pretty a rough patch for me. I had some health issues and some big changes and transitions in my life. And, the opportunity came that I could start my own business. And it, again, was a great business to start. It was something that I was good at, but it wasn't creating the revenue stream that I needed. So people heard about my availability and knew how good I was with animals, and pretty much word got out. So we pretty much evolved from organizing to pet sitting and dog walking. And, it was a hard transition because I was so dead set on, wanting this to work. But I'm, where I am now, 7 years, it's definitely a night and day experience. So.
You said it was a hard transition because you saw yourself more as the organizer and didn't quite see yourself as the pet sitting, dog walking kind of thing, or why was that a rough transition for you?
I think it was like seeing almost like it was a failure. Because you wanted something so badly to work out. And I think that carried over from my last 2014 quarter. So, it wasn't, I have to remind myself that it wasn't a failure. It was more of an evolution. So it still was my own business and it's mine. It just went a different route, than I was expecting. And sometimes, I jokingly say divine intervention, kind of made what it is today for my business. So I, just followed the path and kind of the direction that I was seeing before me. So,
and that's almost impossible to fully comprehend in the moment of, is this a failure? Is this a transition? Am I evolving? Am I a different person right now? We do have those moments of kind of a lot of doubt about ourselves, of going, no, I thought that was the direction I was headed. That was the identity that I thought I had. And we can find ourselves kind of dragging our feet or pushing off a lot of this stuff. What do you think it was about that finally got you walking down the path of becoming the savvy sitter?
Well, I totally agree with that statement. Like being in it, you can't see the forest before the trees situation. Yeah. So you have to, when you're present, obviously, in that moment of, I guess, grief and that emotion, that you can't see what potentially lies before you. So I think as time went on, and again, looking back now 7 years, that's, you can look back on it like a little bump in the road. So
it's put into a lot better context and view from that much further on. What do you feel like, or maybe you do or don't, your past is doing the professional organizing and in that background. How has that helped set you up for success in your current business?
You're going to laugh at me. So I actually kind of came up with a few other little tricks to help myself keep organized. So, I have my own little collection of leashes in my car. But those little hangers that you can hang belts on in the closet. I actually have one in my car for my leashes, so they're not all a hot tangled mess.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So, and I have all these cute little like foldable, collapsible bins, where I have like more leashes, poop bags, treats, toys. So I it's still there, but it's just kind of, again, that me wanting to be organized, just for me, for my sake, and it kind of reflects into my business. My books are very tidy. My accountant loves me for it. So it's definitely ingrained to me, and it definitely translates into the business, because I think I mentioned on the previous podcast that I have a list for my clientele, as far as, like a checklist for them to, when they're getting ready to leave, like, did we leave, the cleaning supplies out? Did we notify our neighbors? Did we tell her when the garbage is going out? And we actually transitioned to the Time to Pet software. So now that they're able to take in more information for our clientele to better service them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just thinking ahead on a lot of those and problem solving. And that's, organization comes down to just a lot of problem solving of where are my pain points? And then what do I need to do about that to overcome that and make sure that I can do that consistently?
Right. I jokingly tell my clients when we're doing any type of interview or meet and greet is like, we try to at least have plans A through D done for you. If anything exceeds that expectation, we're in trouble.
Well, yeah, again, you can't plan for everything, but the part of planning is just having a plan to begin with. Like, that sets you both apart from a vast majority of people, but also sets you up for a lot of success, because once a plan is in place, it can be adapted and changed a lot easier than having to come up with something totally new and foreign to you on the fly.
I'll tell you a quick story real quick, Colin, but not a lot of my other colleagues I have found do this, but we always ask for 2 points of entry, just in case the first one fails. And they tend to ask us, like, why do you need 2? I'm like, well, there was this one time when the garage came off the railings. There was this another time when lightning struck the house and the battery to the door code wasn't working. I've heard stories of, and thank God it hasn't happened to me, of the key snapping in the keyhole. And I'm just like, I'd rather have that 2 points of entry. And they're like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, okay, great.
It is. We have policies for very real reasons, whether we experience something or something has happened to an acquaintance or another business that we're aware of. And that's one of the powerful reasons to be connected with other sitters and in a community like that, because you can fast track a lot of that learning process and have a lot higher quality policies and procedures in place because of the lessons other people went through that now you can benefit from, and when you're interacting with your clients and caring for their pets.
Yes, I always encourage them to have at least one key in a lockbox. And sometimes I get the call from the client like, do you remember our code? Because we locked ourselves out.
Yeah, hey, that's a new service, a lockout service, where you can come and help them get into their home. Now, on your website, and also when you introduced yourself, you said that you proudly serve areas, and you proudly do dog walking and pet care, and that struck me because I don't think that's a word I hear a lot of people use in talking about themselves and their line of work in this industry. So I wanted you to talk about having pride in your work and kind of where that comes from.
Sure. It was a very kind of, when you asked me that question, like, oh, okay, like, this is something that's just not said that often. Yeah. But when I was thinking about it, it was, I think pride goes along with passion. And if you don't have any passion for what you do, you're not going to take pride in doing it. So I feel like in the industry, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, again, you're not going to have pride in what you're doing. And I think physically, if you're referring to my website, as you mentioned, it's also reflecting on the locations that we serve as well. I grew up here where I serve, like Winter Garden, Windermere. And I was actually born in San Diego, California, but I've lived here for over 30 years. So I've seen it grow and expand and, change from what it was to what it is now, which is a very popular area where people want to move to, where when I was a little kid, it was all orange groves. And pulling from my moving industry background, pre-pandemic, about 1,000 people were moving into the area per day, or not my area, but into the state of Florida. And now during the pandemic and post-pandemic, that number has gone up to 1,600 per day.
Wow.
So if you could look out my window right now, Colin, you would definitely see a lot of new construction homes. Houses are still on the market here for sale. New apartments and stuff are going up. My mom actually just showed me, she was at a conference down in South Florida because she works in kind of the real estate industry. And she was showing everyone coming into the state are either buying or renting. And it's pretty like head to head as far as how, close those two are. Like it's pretty much dead even. People are buying and renting around the same pace. So
the area, you mentioned the pride of like this is an area that you're in, like it's and how it's connected to the passion, really linking those, I feel like is important, because that means that you're gonna do things differently, right? You're going to pay more attention. You're going to strive to be better educated. You're going to strive in your services to continue to be better and to try new things. It really wraps up a lot into that. And if we don't have that passion, if we're not connected to that why in our service, in our business, the pride isn't going to be there for very many reasons.
It doesn't necessarily have to be your hometown or where you currently live, because people do move, but have great pride in where you're at, because there's a reason why you're there. And each, community has its own customs and cultures and traditions and events. And yes, there's some probably growing pains and some grumblings, but, I'm proud of where, I live.
And so how are you handling, or what are you doing for your business in an area of such rapid growth? Are you changing anything about marketing, services offered, or anything like that?
I would probably say more prominently, we're definitely having a stronger social media presence, and more of a expert and advisor in the community, and just a great resource. I tell clients all the time, even if they don't hire me for services, like, we want to be a resource, not only for your pet, but for you, because I've lived here for so long. I know all the little secrets and, where to go to eat to get a great steak, all that, all that fun stuff. Like, this is the mechanic you want to avoid, So I think that's important, to be that sort of advisor. I've been asked kind of somewhat in the past couple of months to be a moderator on one of our popular community pages. And, a lot of my clients as well have said, like, Savanna, we see you posting on social media pages all the time, like, here are some of preferred partners, this is what you do when there's a lost dog or a missing pet, like, here's some, this is what you should be asking your vet, or when you're trying to interview a vet or a groomer or a trainer. Here are some local, like, dog friendly restaurants and cafes and dog parks. So again, being that resource, goes a long way in, again, that rapidly growing area, because you are seen as the expert in the field.
Well, and in some ways, it's a little bit easier to get in front of those kind of new people to an area, because they are naturally looking for a lot of information to make their life possible. They're already asking, where's the best steak? Where's the best mechanic? They're already asking, what dentist do people go to? So getting in front of them when they're already in this mode of asking questions is wonderful. I know we have a community page that we're members of, and it's for just the area. It's like, hey, do you have a question about the area? This is where you go. And posting in there has been extremely beneficial, because it's where people go for for area-specific questions. They don't really go to Google. They go to this Facebook group because they know there's a wealth of knowledge, kind of institutional knowledge of both locals and new people of what they're kind of trying to get at. And so being in there has been really beneficial for us. It's interesting to hear kind of it's been similar experience for you.
And I definitely think it's an untapped resource for a lot of pet sitters. I know our page is pretty prominent, and I know there are several pages like that for specific areas. But outside of that, I'm not sure, if there even is a type of page like that, in, let's say, Miami or Tallahassee or, all that fun stuff. But it doesn't hurt to look or even start your own version of it. So.
Yeah. And again, the things that you're posting there, they're not, hey, this is, I walk dogs. This is my price. It's the educational stuff. That is key. And we get, I think that too is an area of not just where to post, but now what we post. That's always the question next of what kind of things do I need to post to get in front of people? It's educate. Right? It's be that genuine resource. And if nothing else, if it's just a listicle of 5 places where you can take your pet, that's really beneficial to people. People love sharing that kind of information.
I totally agree with that.
Have you heard of Time to Pet? Susan, the pet gal, has this to say.
Time to Pet has helped us grow exponentially. We believe the platform's features make us by far more professional than other companies who use conventional dashboards. They are the software gurus constantly developing and improving the platform based on user feedback. This decision was a good one.
If you are looking for new pet sitting software, give Time to Pet a try. Listeners of our show can save 50% off your first 3 months by visiting timetopet.com/confessional. One of the services that you offer are called park play dates. And I was really curious to see how you structure these and kind of what the thinking is behind them.
So it's somewhat, I think, a controversial service to offer, only because their insurance is obviously a big question mark, and obviously you don't know all the dogs going to the park. But again, people don't know my location. So we have a lot of kind of semi-private communities in our area that, have the HOAs that they're not gated, so anybody can kind of go in. But they have their own kind of private dog parks. So, and a lot of our clients, know each other. So that's, how they refer me out is like, oh, you need a dog walker, pet sitter. We use Savanna. Give her a call. Here's her information. And chances are, the dogs had some form of interaction with each other, or they met up at the dog park prior. So if I'm, have 2 clients in the same neighborhood, like I literally have like 5 that are like probably 2 or 3 houses down from each other.
Oh, nice.
and I, call the owners like, hey, I'm walking Max today. Do you mind if I come by and grab Finny? And we can go to the dog park. So, and when we go to the dog park, it's usually dead. So besides myself and the dogs that I bring over. So it's basically almost a private dog park because everyone's usually out at work.
That's a very different take on what I think many people who, when they hear park play dates, may think of. They're thinking of the big open public parks where any Joe Schmo can come with their dog. Now, obviously, there's still that risk. You don't know 100% of the dogs in that community, but being in a private community and a private dog park does insulate you at least a little bit from a lot of those other potential interactions.
And we always make sure, like, you've met, so-and-so before, and like, yeah, they get along great. So as long as we get like consent from both owners, it's not a big deal. So we just make sure that, everybody's aware that we're going to the dog park, and, and if there's another dog that we don't know, we're probably going to go to the next dog park over, because there's a large dog park and a small dog park.
Yeah. And many of us may be listening, thinking of private communities that we service or know about or trying to get into, and that may be an interesting service to offer them as a perk of using them using your services of, hey, I can do this for you, and I will take them to this area where they're already familiar with, where they already maybe have friends. And so that may be something we can think about as far as an add-on or an additional service that we only provide to certain areas. There's still these safety precautions, and there's still these things that are being put into place because of the unpredictable unpredictable nature of those. But again, I think it is really important to kind of couch this in a discussion of the kind of park that this is actually talking about.
Right. So I think when you sent me that question, I think you were under the assumption of like, oh, she's going to the county parks. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I could potentially, but that again, it's that safety issue because I don't know who's coming in. Like again, the Joe Schmo, as you so lovingly called them, could come in and with their untrained dog, and it could be a hot mess. So
yeah. And now that you phrase that, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking of 3 or 4 different private communities that we service that have a dog park, and we currently don't take their dogs there. But I'm kind of processing this in real time now, thinking of like, oh, that could definitely be something that I structure for it to provide to those clients in those areas. Because I think that kind of helps refine it a little bit and sets a little bit better boundaries about that. Because if you put that out there, I'm sure I don't know if you get questions or potential clients asking to take to the big dog parks, but it kind of can help insulate you from some of that as well.
It's not a question that gets asked a lot, but
Okay.
I do mention, if I'm going to one of those communities that I have an established clientele and it's a new client, I mention them like we can walk the dog parks within walking distance of a lot of homes.
Yeah.
So it's an easy hop, skip, and a jump, literally.
Right.
So
when you think about or just reflecting on the services that you do offer, I did want to know kind of what do you see as being the most popular, and then my follow-up question to that is why do you think that is?
So definitely our most popular services are the dog walking. So this could be anytime during the day, obviously lunchtime, and we actually have a lot of clients that need like dinner and evening services as well. That is definitely one of our populars, the vacation clients. So the multiple pet visits or one pet visit, depending on the animal per day while people go away, and the overnight stays. In regards to the daily dog walks, obviously people work, are now back in their offices and whatnot. We do service a lot of Disney clients, so people who work for Disney. So their hours are a little bit different. So we have some people that kind of do like the late afternoon evening shift. So like I have a client that goes in like at 1 or 2 and then doesn't get back till like 10 o'clock at night. So they have those types of, so that's a pretty prominent and requested services are those evening dinner time visits. The vacation visits are, kind of spoken for themselves, like people wanting to go away and they're not wanting to board. But the overnights, are definitely something that we get seen a lot of requests for. In particular, it's when there's a multiple pet home or there's a pet with some medical issues or anxiety issues. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely a popular service. And I think they like the added bonus of someone is taking care of the house as well. So I actually made sure I put the story in here, but we had an incident back in March of 2021 where the house was just completely renovated head to toe, well, ceiling to floor.
Roof to foundation. We'll keep it going.
Roof to foundation. And I was staying, his name was Hershey, and he was a little Yorkie. And it was a multi-million-dollar home in a private community. So I got there that night. And I hear some kind of the pipes groaning a little bit. I'm like, it's probably, you're a little bit more sensitive to sounds in a place that you're not familiar with.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I didn't pay much mind to it because it's, it's probably, water pressure changing in the house or whatever. So I wake up the next morning and I'm on an island. So the water was pretty much surrounding the bed. Hershey was sound asleep, floating on his dog bed. I walk out and the water's coming from the gym area and it's all wooden floor. So I'm in my flip-flops and the wooden floor is like squishing underneath and pushing more water out. And luckily I knew where the main water line is and I turned off the water, thank God, to the house. And I called the client. They weren't even gone like 12 hours.
Wow.
And this happened. So if I was doing like traditional visits, that would have probably been more water damage because I probably would have been there another hour or two later.
Yeah.
So needless to say, that was a very memorable overnight stay.
Yeah, for all the wrong reasons. Now, do you enjoy doing the overnights? Because I know many people get into pet care and they think that they have to do overnights, that they have to do that, but they are homebodies. They miss their bed. They don't like living out of a suitcase for days on end. How do you process that kind of transition that you're kind of going through from overnight to overnight?
Well, raising the price helps a lot.
Okay, yeah.
So, I think it's the question of price wise, can I leave my bed for $150 per night for a couple nights? Okay, sure. Yeah. So I think initially when, any pet sitter or dog walker starting off and they're wanting to offer overnight stay is 30 nights, $30, $70, I'm just no.
Yeah.
I started at that point, but it's how much is being in my bed worth, having and being home? And I have clients that will happily pay that amount because they know that I'm going to be there, when I say I'm going to be there. And I think limiting myself to how many overnights I can do. I think the longest I ever did was over 18 days.
Ooh.
So, but it was a nice home and it was comfortable. And I think that's a big thing. And my mom jokingly tells this story, and another thing is asking. So I was staying at a client's house. The mattress was super hard. I woke up with my back aching every time. So when they called and asked me to do another overnight service, I asked them, can you please put a mattress pad on top of the bed? Oh. And they said, that's not a problem. You should have said something earlier. And sure, by God, they put one down for me by my next visit. So sometimes, having those creature comforts, I know sometimes clients ask, can we get you anything as far as food or whatnot,
Yeah.
I think depending on, again, the client, they're making sure that you're comfortable, being there as well helps. So it's not just, I'm just bringing my stuff and I'm there. Do you want apples? Do you want certain types of food? All that fun stuff. So,
yeah. And I love that, not being afraid to ask a question, right? To make your job a little bit easier, to make your life a little bit easier. And that goes for whether you're staying over at a client's home or not. I know one thing that I consistently come back to a lot is, could you please leave out spare towels for us by the door when we come in? Because it's a headache for me to try and clean up your floor and to get your dog clean and scramble around and try and find this stuff. So just asking, can you please do this for me? And that may be a breaking point. You may discover, what, it's not worth it to continue to service somebody if they're not willing to do this thing for me. And you only get to that point if you ask and you make requests and you have that conversation with the client. That is critical to understand that this is a two-way communication that we're having. They have requests and asks of us, and we certainly have requests and asks of them.
Yes, I totally agree with the two-way street. And, I always tell clients, the worst I can say is no, and the worst that you can say is no. So
exactly. Yeah. You that's the worst thing that can happen. And then you get to decide, okay, now what do we do from here?
I got my mattress pad, so I got what I wanted.
Ta-da, there you go. I'm so Now you also have been hiring staff, and I was curious when how that process has been going for you, and also do they do all of the same services that you currently provide yourself?
Okay, so going back to the list. So this is the organizer part of me.
I know.
So I probably started hiring my first or second year into the business. It was an accident of I double booked myself without realizing it. Oopsie on my part. But I had a contact at the Wolfgang Bakery, which is a dog boutique and grooming salon. And I was great friends with the owner. And I knew the person at the register. And I asked her point blank, I'm like, would you be interested in working for me? She said, and she said, yeah, she said yes. So, and I knew she was, thoroughly background checked, and, like the owner wouldn't just hire anybody, so I knew I was in good hands with that. In regards to the hiring, I guess the timeline of that, it just kind of started to tack on little bit by little bit. So I think when we last spoke, Colin, I had about 2 or 3 assistants plus myself, and now that's doubled. So I have 6,
nice,
including myself. And some of it is, I think some of the stories I think we hear a lot is the client wanting to come work for you.
Yeah.
So I had my first experience. I'm like, you want to do what now?
Yeah.
Like, I want to come work for you. Like, oh, okay. Here's our paperwork.
Yeah.
You kind of know what we do. So
that helps.
Yeah. A lot of it's word of mouth as well. So when I was pulling out feelers, I'm like, hey, I'm looking for some extra help. And a lot of it was through my other assistants. And if it wasn't through them, it was through their friends that they knew. Ironically, which is, I think, a compliment to how you treat people. My first assistant, she had to leave town to go take care of some family matters out of state. So I lost her, sadly, as everyone kept asking for her. I'm like, where is she? I'm like, she had to go and take care of some things, so she's not here anymore.
Yeah.
I kid you not, Colin, I get a text like probably at the beginning of December. Hey, Savanna, I'm coming back into the town. Can I come work for you again?
Oh, yay. Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, yes, people have been asking for you. So, in regards to, I guess, the same, if they provide the same services I do, yes and no. So I have some some assistants that will do the overnights. I have some that will not. I will have some clients that will do have usually some size restrictions in the animals that they service,
okay,
or breed restrictions. So I'm just mindful of that. So I primarily go do the meet and greet first, just to kind of like see what the situation is, or I bring somebody that is available. And, I'm kind of like, okay, it's cats. It's 2 small dogs. It's a German Shepherd. It's a guinea pig. It's a pot-bellied pig. It's a parrot, just kind of going through the back of my head. I'm like, and the location, like, this is a good fit for so-and-so. This is a good fit for so-and-so. This is not a good fit for so-and-so. So we're just going back, because they all have their preferences and specialties like we all do. And I jokingly put in the notes, like, I will not do snakes.
Sure.
Savanna will not do snakes. In my 7 years of doing this, I have not had to do snakes. And hopefully that will stay that way.
Let's not break that streak. Yeah.
Just not break that streak. Nope. No snakes for Savanna.
And so is that a conversation you have with them as you're bringing them on, of what are you willing to do, what are you not willing to do? Or is this just what you've learned about them and their preferences over time?
Well, it's when we kind of sit down and go over coffee. And a lot of these people I've known for many, many years personally. So I kind of know a little bit of their backgrounds and stuff like that. So, I ask them kind of point, like, is there things that are you comfortable doing or not doing? And I tell them, like, this is the services that we provide. These are the types of animals that we normally see. Do you have any problems with either of them? And I usually bring up the topic of me not wanting to do snakes, and that usually breaks the ice.
Well, that's nice that you have something to point to as an example, because I'm sure, I know when we interview people, they say, no, anything and everything's perfectly fine. I don't care. But they're not quite thinking the breadth of animals that we could potentially care, right? And so being very specific of like, okay, you said everything. Scorpions still good? And they're like, wait, what? That's a thing?
Well, I've definitely seen, Colin, and I was going to mention this, like, we're definitely seeing a lot more exotics coming into our realm. I just finished taking care of an axolotl.
Oh, they're so cute.
I know. They always look like they're smiling. And then when I go to networking events, like our tagline, all creatures great and small, we're not kidding.
Yeah.
So like obviously dogs and cats are our bread and butter, but I've done poison dart frogs. I've done several different types of geckos and lizards and turtles and tortoises, saltwater fish, freshwater fish, koi fish, snails, crabs. What else is there? Several different types of birds, chickens, goats, pigs, horses, cows.
Yeah.
Yeah, the oxalotl is probably the most interesting one, and the poison dart frogs. Everyone's like, people keep those as pets. I'm like, yeah, they do.
Yeah. They do.
Yeah.
and that's incumbent upon us to, as we start this process of bringing on staff, is going and making them part of our team, is educating them on that. Like, it really is not just educating them on how to take care of certain pets, but also not just our policies, but also all of the types of animals that we could encounter, because we want to. It's interesting that you mentioned that you kind of curtail who's going to be on visits based off of their wants and kind of where their specialties are. I know other companies decide, hey, everybody has to be able to do everything. And so we kind of have to meet somewhere in the middle for care. So I think it's when you're bringing on staff, you get to make that decision of how you're going to structure that.
Right. And I think, being understanding of, people's preferences and limitations is important, though, because you want them to be able to provide, again, that passionate and prideful care. Like one of my assistants is not a personal fan of pit bulls because a pit bull apparently attacked and killed her dog. And she's like, I would prefer not to, but it's not the same dog, as far as, what happened to me and my pet. So it's just being mindful of, like, because again, you don't know, why they have those personal preferences and limitations. Like Savanna hates snakes because she feels like she walks across them every day of her life, which is a true statement.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just being, courteous and mindful as an employer.
The National Association of Professional Pet Sitters in-person conference is now just 3 months away. Join sitters from across the country in New Orleans for 3 days of excellent high-impact speakers. They'll be covering topics like employee versus independent contractor, building your dream pet sitting business, strategic growth and marketing, and one talk about the life of a professional pet sitter by Megan and myself on Saturday night. The event is March 3rd through 5th at the Conference Center on 11. Get registered today at petsitters.org. And you mentioned that you'd hired in your first or second year because you had kind of double booked on a set occasion. That leads me to a question that I want to ask you, as far as knowing when you have overcommitted in a business, and kind of what are some warning signs to you, both in the business and at a personal level?
Okay, so we're going to go into the philosophical portion of this. So the commitment, I think it's more of an exchange and an agreement to something. It's a promise. So usually the school of hard knocks is our greatest teacher. So learning what those are, and those limitations are different for everybody. So like people kind of jaw drop when, I say I can sound my most visits I ever done is like between 24 visits in a day. And then some people think like that's a lot. And then other people's like, oh, I do that in a day. So I think understanding, as far as being overcommitted, what your limitations are, and then learning from those experiences, like how much you can do, and looking at your team and your staff and knowing what those limitations are themselves before you commit them to something like that. So it's also, again, that exchange. So it's the promise and agreement, but you're also getting something in return. So whether that be monetary growth for yourself, goal wise, time as well. So it's when those returns from the commitment, when it's not as valuable or it's not worth that commitment anymore. So I'm going to give you an example. I used to service Dr. Phillips, which is a neighboring area to Winter Garden and Windermere. So it's about a 20, 30-minute drive, give or take. We serviced that area initially. We had for many years. And when we were getting into the 2021, so March 2021 of this year, the timing wasn't right. So we were starting to lose clients because of age and health reasons and moving out. And we were basically trickled down to one client per day over in that area. So we were committed to servicing that area, but the return value on it wasn't enough to continue that commitment. So we had other opportunities and that were closer to home. So do we still remain committed to that one client that we service Monday through Friday and for an hour round trip for one service, and potentially sacrifice and have other clients suffer because, we run into traffic just for that one client? That's when, being committed is not worth it anymore. It's that, that exchange of the time, the value and all that fun stuff. So we decided, and it was kind of, again, that path that you didn't see it before you, but there were like little nudges that were pushing you in that direction. Our contact over at the Wolfgang Bakery was selling the business, so they were no longer going to be owners. We lost several clients due to age and moving out, and we weren't getting a lot of inquiries for services over in that area to make up for those losses. So we just had that one client. It didn't make sense to continue to service when we had other inquiries closer to home. So again, as much as commitment is important, you also have to make sure that it's a good exchange for that commitment of time and value.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because we just went through something similar for coming up into the holidays when we're recording this. So we kind of had our schedule set. We had our routes planned, and then someone requested, and they were 27 minutes away. And technically, it could have worked. It could have been done. But when we sat and thought about what we were asking our staff to commit to, of an hour of drive time to hit that client and then come back, versus having a little bit of downtime and space in their day, it didn't matter that he was willing to pay our price. It wasn't worth it for the mental and the mental burden, the drive time, everything involved in that. It just didn't add up. Now, sometimes you may look at that and go, okay, well, now what I need to do is I need to try and drum up business over there to make it worth my time. And that's certainly a decision that you can go and do as a business to try and, again, capitalize on the time of, while I'm over there, let's see if I can get 2 or 3 more visits to make it worth it. But if you don't want to do that, if you're not interested in growing in that way, you have full right to retract and go, no, I'm not going to commit to myself to that.
And I think, again, just going back on, your limitations, it's understanding those. And that comes with obviously time and experience and learning to say no. I know initially, like with many new pet sitters, I think no is such a taboo word because you're wanting to build that clientele that you're afraid to say no. And you're emotionally invested in, what people think of you. So I think as experience and time has gone, you can definitely say, you can look at, is it worth it? Like, can I commit to this, without, losing anything or much in the process?
Yeah, well, it is. And what I do is I sit there and I just start adding zeros to either the time frame or the cost and go, okay, if I had to do this 1,000 more times, right, would it be worth it? Maybe not. Something that I know we've been committing to more recently is because we have because of the way we have our team scheduled, we are able to take on care for pets whose owners are in long-term care facilities, actually. So we're coming over 3 times a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. If I was by myself, that's not something that we could commit to. And
that's not sustainable either.
No, it's not. And so trying to realizing that not just with experience, but as your services changed, as your team changes, as your service area differentiates, as your interests change, what you used to commit to may not be the same thing, and something brand new may come across your plate that you never thought of committing to that may be a great opportunity. And it's just being aware of those kind of things as they come across and knowing, what is it at the end of the day that I want out of this?
Exactly. And I think people need to be mindful that promises can be broken. So
yeah.
and it's okay. Like, it's not like you're doing it intentionally, but it's, you have to look out for yourself at the end of the day in your business, because it is a business. So
exactly. Okay, this business relationship isn't working out anymore. No harm, no foul. We're moving on to do something different. Yeah. That happens all the time.
Yeah. And I always, my greatest piece of advice to anybody starting a business is, and even in our industry, is like, if you can provide a solution to the problem or how you're going to fix it, that makes the break or the problem solving so much easier versus saying, I'm sorry, it's not working out, we're done. But you can say, I'm sorry, we can no longer service you. Here are some other recommendations for pet care providers in your area.
Something else that I noticed, Savanna, is that you describe yourself as a founder of the Savvy Pet Sitter, and I want to know kind of where that view comes from and what that changes on how you interact with your business.
So again, these very deep, insightful questions, Colin. The founding part, I thought, it's true ownership. So it's mine. So I think when you look historically at some of the long-lasting businesses, Disney, for example. So Walt Disney was not just the owner, he's also the founder. So being the founder of something gives true ownership and possession. Anyone can go in and buy a business and be the owner, but building it from the ground up, creating the culture, the policies, procedures, you pour your blood, sweat, and tears. Like, I hate to say it, but my business is like my child or my significant other. That is sometimes selfish and very demanding, but it's your baby, and sometimes it needs your attention 24/7, and you have to go in and solve the problem. And there's, just obviously you need to make sure that you have that separation and be your own individual. But, going back to, the pride and being proud of something, and the passion, if, you would have asked me, when I initially started this, business, would I consider myself an owner? No, I'm working my butt off to build something. But it's also a matter of legacy. So Disney is actually celebrating its 50th. Walt Disney World, the Magic Kingdom, is celebrating its 50 years. And then Epcot is celebrating its 40 years. That's a legacy for Walt Disney. So it's, I've been doing this for 7 years, going on 8, and now it's a matter of legacy. Like, I founded this company with, blood, sweat, and tears and time. And it's something that I originated, I built, I created, and it's mine. And that's, again, being a founder versus being an owner, because anyone can go in and buy a company and be an owner, but it's building, the foundation of the company.
About that.
Yes. I'm the queen of puns. I'm sorry. But again, it's just building that foundation. I mean, a lot of the pet sitting companies I would consider, they are founders, of their own company. So.
Yeah. It's stepping back and realizing nothing existed in this space until I did something about it. That's really profound. That is insanely profound. And then not just that it exists, but also it's serving others. It's making money. That's not a bad thing. It's providing for staff if you have them. It's providing a level of income for you. It is doing all of this stuff. And that's started because you did it, right? That was something that you said that phrase, I originated this. This was from me. That's important. I don't think we should lose sight of that.
No, and I think a lot of people don't give themselves credit for building something from the ground up. And I think, again, if you would have asked me when we first interviewed or prior to that, I wouldn't, consider it. But again, going into year 7, 8 and seeing what I've accomplished, not just as a business owner, I'm still, pinching myself sometimes.
Oh, for sure. I know each time that I have to run or do payroll and I just look at the taxes that I'm paying on stuff. I'm like, man, when I was
said the T word.
Yeah, I know. When I'm doing that stuff, it's like that's real. Like that's money that is generated that my company is paying. That is a not insignificant amount of money that, 10, 15 years ago when I was doing other stuff was like, it's life-changing to think about it in that, in that perspective. So
yeah, you have to add Uncle Sam on your payroll. It's not a fun time.
Yeah, sorry about that. Well, and so you mentioned that you're interested in more about legacy now. So what is your view of the future? And I don't know if you do have an end goal for the business, but kind of what's your mindset on that these days?
I would like definitely to grow my business bigger. Obviously a controlled growth. But I think, and this can obviously change, one of my goals, if I hit my 10-year was to break into 6 figures, and I broke that, last year.
Nice.
So, and I'm on track to break it again this year. I think, things can change obviously, but, as of now, I think when I retire, I will retire the business as well. But that's not saying that, if the opportunity came is like, hey, I want to buy your company for X amount of money and you're retiring.
Yeah.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'm like, sure. I mean, that's, I actually had one of my colleagues, actually just sold his business, and is in primarily services the same area as me, but he serviced a community called Celebration, which was in Disney property. So he went through that process, but he still started or restarted his own pet sitting and dog walking business as well. So, but initially, like if I could, this is what's going to happen. That's what I would ideally would like to happen. But again, things change, we can only control so much in our lives.
That is true. And sometimes those changes happen. They're just kind of serendipitous and how they come about. And sometimes they're pretty intentional. And so you've started something brand new as well. You started a YouTube channel specifically for calming music for pets.
Yeah.
This is fascinating, Savanna. Why was this important for you to start?
So I think a lot of it had to do with, I hate that we use the P word and the T word a lot, this podcast, but the pandemic. So obviously a lot of pet sitting and dog walking businesses closed or lost a lot of clients because, people were working from home. They weren't traveling as much. And I think a lot of your conversations, I think after that, when people were going back to work, were how to diversify your income. And that was kind of a key word, like diversifying your income streams. So a lot of talk was about e-commerce and, offering training videos and coaching videos and books and all that fun stuff. And I'm just like, I like those ideas, but I'm just like, I'm not 100% feeling them. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I don't know about you, Colin, but when I'm usually working on something, I like to have some background noise. And while I'm working, and I wish it would have hit me sooner because I would have been so much further along. But I leave music on for my clients all the time.
Okay.
And there are actually 4 primary YouTube pet music channels on YouTube. So there is opportunity to compete. It's not like there's hundreds of thousands, but there's 4. But I feel like with my connections and the community of the pet sitters and dog walkers, like this could, take off, with, me connecting with them. It's like, hey, here's my pet music YouTube channel. Please take a look. And, I hope you can, get it onto your client's TV when you go away after your visit or between visits. So, it literally, again, has happened when I was just like, why am I not doing this? Because I do it for myself and I do it for my clients. So like, why can't I get a piece of the YouTube pie here? So, and I know Doug Keeling and Dan with Dan's Dog Walking, they have their own YouTube channels. I'm personally not comfortable being on screen.
Sure.
So let's go a different route here.
No, it is. I recommend people leave, white noise, a fan, video, something playing for their pets, even if they don't really experiencing any of the separation anxiety or much of that. It's just a nice benefit to have, and a lot of pet owners don't even think to do that or that it's an option for them. So this is a great tie-in to your existing business to be able to, again, say, I'm the originator of this. This is how passionate we are. This is something we're trying to do about this problem for you.
Well, I also add on to that is, like, would you like to listen to deafening silence for 8 hours a day?
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
And I also point out to them, it's just like, we don't know what they're hearing when we're not around. So like, you may have a dog that, like was never afraid of thunderstorms and loud bangs. And then suddenly, like the next day, like you drop a pan and, God forbid the dog like is hiding under the bed. So it helps like cancel out any outside noises. Like we're in Disney territory. The fireworks go off every night. We have thunderstorms. We're in Central Florida. So, I mean, if I can cancel out that noise and mitigate any additional stress or triggers, I'm more power to the YouTube channel, I say. So
yes, I'm sure it's another just kind of creative outlet as you come and think of this stuff. And that's another part of being a founder, being an entrepreneur, is going, what new things can we help set the tone for the business?
Yes, I'm your pet sitting and dog walking Imagineer. So,
oh my gosh, I'm writing that down. I love that so much. Oh my gosh,
I'll send you my consultation fee later.
Thanks. I'm gonna get the rights to print that on a shirt. Okay.
You can only sell that at Disney. It would sell at Disney. I promise you.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Well, Savanna, I really want to thank you for your time today and for sharing your experiences through this. But I know that there is a lot more, and if people are interested in going and checking out your YouTube channel, how can they follow along with Savvy Sitter and go check out that channel?
So right now it's kind of hard to find if you just put in peaceful pet music. A lot of the other videos will show up that with the more established channels, but I'm sure you're going to put in the link to directly go to the main page for the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So and all you have to do is subscribe and push on the notification button, and it should pop up, pretty easily when you put in peaceful pet music or subscribe to my channel. And we pretty much update videos every week. So I have a nice snowfall video now with a cat and a dog, and it's a pug with its tongue sticking out trying to catch the snow flurries. So it's quite amusing. But I have Santa Claus is coming next week, so he'll be flying over the skies, delivering presents to all the good pups and kitties. So it's the Savvy Sitter on Instagram, and then our website is thesavvysitter.org. And we're also on Instagram for peaceful pet music as well.
Perfect. Yeah, that's awesome. And I'll have all those links on there. And I know you've got some QR codes that people can get access to make it really easy to download and get access to those videos. You can use them as stickers. I know you've talked about that, and you can include them on your website, and people can, just contact you if they want to get access to those. Savanna, I really appreciate getting to catch up with you. I really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you so much.
Queen of puns. I'm happy to entertain at any time, but it's always nice to talk to you as well, Colin. And I have to say congratulations on creating a possum pet sitting community, both here audioly and on social media as well. You've definitely created something possum.
Awesome.
So
Thank you. That means a lot, Savanna. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
My pleasure.
What are you committed to? We commit ourselves to so many things every single day, and we overcommit ourselves easily, sometimes without even trying too hard. When our passion is fueling the commitment, though, it's easier to see when we have overstepped that boundary, when we have overcommitted ourselves, because the passion is not there to fuel the commitment. At the end of the day, having those good boundaries and knowing why you started and why you continue will help you make good decisions on what you ultimately will commit to and what you will not commit to. We want to thank today's sponsor, Time to Pet, and the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters. Make sure you check out our show notes and on our website to learn more about them. Megan and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week, and you're looking forward to an amazing new year, and we'll be back again soon.